Clay Travis, college football writer for OutKickTheCoverage.com and Fox Sports college football analyst, joins us now. I don't know why I thought of you, Clay, when I saw that the NCAA, those benevolent souls, are giving out more food and snacks. Why now, Clay?
Because, Dan, they're running behind. They are chasing this story, whether it's the NCAA selling jerseys, whether it's the union, or ultimately Shabazz Napier comes out and says, look, I go to bed hungry at night. This is a sign of the NCAA crumbling. Why I think its current model, it's a dead man walking, and they're trying to get ahead of these stories so all of a sudden we don't have athletes going to bed hungry stories taking over the national sports narrative. But this isn't new. We've had guys talking about this for a while. Arian Foster said he had no money for tacos. I don't know if you remember that at Tennessee a year ago. People laughed about it when this happens in the NCAA tournament. Maybe it's the juxtaposition between that story and the $700 million check that the NCAA is cashing, but it definitely feels hypocritical. And I think it's just a sign of them chasing. It's amazing how quickly things are happening now in terms of trying to give athletes things that really don't matter very much. I mean, let's be honest. This is not a huge cost issue, but they're chasing the story, and they're trying to get ahead of it, and they're going to fail, but that's what they're trying to do.
Okay, but is this one of those, hey, look at all the flashy things and shiny lights over here. You don't notice that we're not going to be paying athletes. Or forget about what Northwestern's doing trying to unionize here. Is it one of those kind of bait-and-switch type moves here with the NCAA?
100%. I think it's a little bit of the NCAA's Marie Antoinette moment. We got no food. Well, let them eat cake. Immediately there's a little bit of a distraction. Then you wait and you think for a minute and you say, wow, this is kind of ridiculous that we had to wait for so long for this to happen, right? And I think you're right. I think there is a bait-and-switch element to it. And I think the underlying story here is the NCAA under siege and trying to do something to adjust the story that's out there, which is we're making a ton of money off these kids. And really, when you break down the NCAA's role, what is it? It's the most fundamentally anti-capitalistic organization in America. They exist to ensure that if you have talent, you get nothing for it. Because remember, if you have rich relatives, if you have rich assets to cash, you can drive around campus on a Range Rover. You can take fancy vacations to exotic locales. The thing you can't do is ever get any of that because of your talent, which is fundamentally anti-American. So I think a lot of people are suddenly starting to realize that, and it just strikes people the wrong way, and a few extra meals, it's not really going to change the story.
You ever heard a good plan to pay athletes?
I put one together, Dan, and immediately some people said, it's crazy. I think let's start with the complexity. Any lawyer who tells you they know what the actual outcome of this union situation is or what's going to happen with Title IX if you start paying revenue sport athletes, I think what you have to do is eliminate the idea that all student athletes are treated equal. And I think the reason you have to do that is because all student athletes are not equal. And this is why I said, some unions make sense. Like the Northwestern Football Union would make sense. A union of men's basketball players would make sense. Potentially women's basketball players could make sense. These are the most valuable athletes. Most athletes in the NCAA are actually overcompensated for their talents, but they take the excess from men's football and men's basketball and maybe women's basketball value. In other words, those guys are worth a lot of times over $100,000 a year, and they give it to women's lacrosse or men's diving or all these other different guys or gals who get full scholarships that would never get market-based full scholarships. So to me, what you do is you say, this is a fundamentally broken system because really what we have is a market-based economy partly and a non-market-based economy elsewhere. So I think what you have to do is divide revenue from non-revenue producing sports and create a own system of rules for revenue versus non-revenue. I think that would work legally. I'm not 100% sure it would, and anybody who says they know exactly what would work is wrong. But I think there's an argument that can be made there.
Talking to Clay Travis, OutKickTheCoverage.com, Fox Sports college football analyst, and also part of one of our great affiliates in Nashville, 104.5 The Zone. So what's next here with the NCAA?
Well, I'm curious to see what's going to happen with the union. I think there are a couple of looming threats. I believe on June 9th, the Ed O'Bannon trial officially begins. This thing has been winding its way through for 5 years. The wheels of justice do not turn rapidly. What's going to happen there? And obviously, whatever happens at the trial court level, if it doesn't settle right beforehand, is eventually going to play itself out at every different level of appeal. And then I think you tie that in also with the uncertainty of the union process. Northwestern, assuming the players certify, which isn't 100% a slam dunk, but if they vote to become a union, then the appeal immediately will be filed. I believe it's already been filed with the NLRB to find out whether or not this was a legitimate ruling about the union. Those are the two biggest threats, I think, right now on the horizon. And if the NCAA has any, semblance of intelligence, they will try to settle these situations before they can go any further. But those are the two looming threats. And if the NCAA has any shining light at all, at least they get 4 or 5 years probably before we have an ultimate resolution of this matter.
You cover the SEC. I'm curious what the training table, the spread looks like for SEC football, if you even want to include SEC basketball. Are they treated differently?
Yeah, look, I mean, these guys, basically have access to things all day long. I mean, a good example, you were talking about Tennessee earlier. Yeah. I was at their recent facility, which is right now, it's an arms race, right? Every year somebody comes out with a new facility that's even better than the previously existing one. But they have like a Jamba Juice type smoothie bar right there in the weight room where they will personally make sure that you are getting the most adequate workout shake that you possibly can right there, real time, the moment you finish working. I mean, it's a small thing, but I think it's a pretty good example of what they've got going on. I mean, they're making smoothies that are incredibly detailed based on your own biochemistry that will allow you to recover from your workout the most quickly. I mean, it's a level of technology that is frankly unbelievable. And I think that's what we're moving towards, is not just a training table, but an individual specific training table. You need more steak, you need more protein, whatever it is. I'm not smart enough to know all the nutritional aspects, but they are designing individual nutritional diets for individual players.
Yeah, I put a bar in here with beer on tap for my guys, so I'm taking care of
I empathize there, and that's what my diet definitely, that's my focal point.
Thank you, Clay.
Appreciate y'all having me. Thanks a lot.
That's Clay Travis. Website is outkickthecoverage.com, Fox Sports college football analyst.